Okay, so now that we have this context in our welcome HTML via this view here, so this is our context. We have app name data for the tables and visuals data for the visuals. Let's go to HTML and see what I did for the tables. This is the easy bit because that's where it's a very simple HTML table. Let's just release this here and make more space here. Okay. So literally I just went to Bootstrap, and so I Googled Bootstrap table, and you just go to Bootstrap tables and it tells you what to use for your Bootstrap tables. So you have different styles here, and to get each style you just have to check what is the class that you have to use. So if you want to just use table, it's going to make a nice table like this instead of very kind of rigid basic HTML table. If you want to use a table dark, you can go with this, and so on. So have a look. I used very simple. I just used class table, and that was it. So let's have a look. So before we had this section here, and by the way, I can see here that I changed this heading to just heading, and I changed the name of this view here. So when we push the form post, we post the form, basically it sends it to this view here. Okay, and so that's one section. Okay, I just copied all the things, including the header. I just selected all the section and Control C and Control V. So I'm just repeating what I did. I'm going to delete that bit in a second. And what you need to get rid of is the form. So here is the closing tag, here's the opening tag. So just basically if you click here and shift and here and delete, you have a section, an empty section where you just need to change this and maybe some headers here, depending, maybe just name, obviously change the name of the section. Here we need to change it to the ID of the table, so that's the data table, and it has to be the same as the one that we have here in our base in the links. So basically when we get to the air pollution page, we want to use those IDs to slide around the page. So there's the data table and data visuals. So this needs to be data table, and in here, so you can change the icon if you want and so on. And in here needs to go your content. Okay, so that's what I did at the to get ready for this table section. And when I was ready, I put in this table there. Okay, this is the only part that is kind of like new. The rest is just copy and paste. Yeah, that's the header section, change the ID to data table. That all things stay the same. I just changed this here as well, the caption. But really after deleting the form from here, I was ready to put in this table here. So then, okay, if you know HTML, you probably know roughly what's going on here, even if you don't know Jinja and the tags here, the Django tags basically. If you don't know HTML, well, have a look what's the, just Google HTML tables and see what the table is, what TR is, and TH and TD. Basically what it is this symbolizes we start the table. This says, okay, there's another row, and each TR is the row, TH is a header of some sort, and TD is as data. So it's as easy as that. So in here, what I did was, and let's have a look how it looks on my page. So let's go to data table and see when I'm clicking now, it's using the IDs that I mentioned before. For this, it's a data table, and you can see the headers here. Okay, so let's go back. So these are my headers. And then what I did was I go through each pollutant. Okay, so for each pollutant name, comma, pollution data. So in views and context, data table, this is that nested dictionary that I created for this. And what I'm doing is I'm going through it here, and I get the key, which is here, pollution name, which I'm using here. And then inside of it, the pollution data is basically the country name, code, and then the average. And so in here you can see, so first we go through the data items, and then inside of that, so I'm taking this pollution data and I'm iterating through that pollution data as well in here. So you have nested for loop here, where we're extracting the country, ISO, and average pollution that we plug in here, okay? And in here, I use this pretty neat for loop first tag, which basically asks, is it the first item of this for loop? And I want to make sure that when I'm here, I'm at this row, I can say, okay, I'm gonna have this row where we have 1, 2, 3 columns if it's the first row of this pollutant. If it's a second one, I don't want to just put like PM10, PM10, PM10. I want to give it the row span attribute that just goes through all the items that we have here as long as it's the same pollutant. So I'm saying, okay, if it's the first one, if for loop first, then do this. Otherwise, only give me the country ISO and the average pollution. And you can see here, this is a Django tag, which makes the flows look like this. So instead of having like 9999999 or whatever it is, because in memory it might be a bit longer, it might store a bit more than just one decimal number. But using this tag, so pipe and float format, it makes it look very nice. So that's the kind of just my approach for now. I'm going to use something called data tables in the future, but I need to get that ready and get the Ajax working first, which probably I'm going to do in the future, not in this video. So anyway, that's the table. So this is where we start with the charts.js. And so don't worry about what's going on here. Again, what I did was I copied the section from above, right? I only took out whatever was between these two divs. Okay, so again, if we just take this table out, we have those divs, and this is where the content goes. So again, I did this in here, and all that is happening here is I basically go through the visuals data, and I just put this canvas here that will be used by JavaScript to plug in the visuals. And I'm actually pretty proud of myself because I came up with this sleek solution. Basically, the best way to use ChartJS is to use it with Ajax. What I wanted to show you is that it's possible to use it even if you generate multiple charts, such as in here. So you have PM10, you have NO2, you have O3. So you have different charts. And it's generated obviously using this for loop here. So I just put this one canvas where we are storing pollution name, some labels, some data, some background and border, and then we use it in JavaScript. And the JavaScript that I built here actually comes, and it's pretty much just copy paste. So if you Google ChartJS, go on their website, and somewhere here, depends on the current version, they change it quite a lot. I think you just have to go to get started, installation, and if you go to CDNs, you need to go to, I think it's here. Yeah. And so here is a couple of different options. I just went with this minimized version here, so you can change it, but you shouldn't be really going in and changing anything. Basically, if I copy this and paste it here, it gives me the code. But I don't want to look at the code. I want to just implement it into my HTML. So if I go here on the very bottom, so we have the base. Oh yeah, so you need at the very bottom of your base HTML, add okay, two things. One is this line here. So I just gave it a header, and I said script source, and I just pasted this up. Oh, look what happened here. It happened before, so it basically gives you like a couple of line breaks. So you just have to delete them. And so that's the HTTPS CDN URL that I just copied from the website. And so you need to put that in, and also open this block.js at the very end of your body. Okay, just before the body ends, put this curly brace %sign block.js and close the bracket. And again, you need to say end block at the end. Okay, but so then you can not only use, see, I'm ending some block here, and that block is called content, which is being injected here somewhere into the hidden content, and then we're looking for an actual content here. So that's where it's being plugged in. in here, we also can add some JS. So at the very bottom here, I'm using this block JS here, and I'm just adding this this short code that is basically mainly copied from sorry, let's go back then in chart.js, go back again. Oh, sorry, so that's in here. I went to to usage, okay? And so this is what they tell us to copy to our HTML, and that's what I did here. And I changed it slightly. So I added those attributes here: data name, data labels, data, and data background. Basically, if you want to add some additional data that then you can kind of grab with JavaScript, and actually not just JavaScript, I'm using jQuery for this. So if you see this sign, $sign, just that's jQuery. It's a library for JavaScript. So I just put a bit more information here, and then as we create, so this would be something very so that would display nothing if I didn't grab it with my code here. So basically what I'm doing, if we look at this code here, so then I need to grab it, and I grabbed it with this code, okay? And not exactly, because what those guys, sorry, let's go back to usage. What those guys are assuming that we just have one canvas, right? So, and they gave it an ID of my chart, and then you can grab it. And if you want to grab an ID with jQuery, you need to use the hash symbol, okay? But what I did was I used the class symbol, okay? The dot is a class, so I'm kind of like catching all the classes, all the tags, all the elements in my HTML of class my chart. Okay, if there is a class my chart in any of the elements inside of this HTML, I want to grab it and go through each of them and put that function of them on them. Okay, so that's what you want to do, and then you want to grab some data from each of those elements. Okay, so really, if you go here after just grabbing, instead of the ID, you grab class, but then as you do the each on that selected elements. So that's where you would grab it. And if it was just one, you can just do something like this. Like, well, my chart is a class, is a new class of chart. And then we do some magic here. This is where the type is stated. This is where the labels go. This is where the name goes. This is where the data goes. And this is where the background color goes. And as you can see, it's a list of strings or array in JavaScript. It's called, instead of list, it's called array, but it's the same thing. And in here we have an array of strings again. And if you do that, you get the chart. So let's have a look. And why did I put those console logs? You'll see in a second. But basically what I did, and as you remember, I mentioned that I had to JSON dump those lists basically. So now to undump it, let's say, so go from JSON to whatever JavaScript understands, you do JSON parse, and it's called serialized information. So instead of having an actual data type of list, like Python data type that JavaScript just doesn't understand, it's just a string, and it's serialized string that then you need to parse using JSON. So in here, just let's start from the beginning. So we grab all of the elements with class my chart, and we go through each of them using a anonymous function. So we don't need to specify that function anywhere else. We just define it here, and of I and CTX, which is the name they used here. It doesn't have to be CTX, but since they used that CTX here, I'm just like, yeah, so I'm gonna just stick to that. You can call it whatever you want. You can say doggy. So whenever you use it, you need to say doggy. Anyway, so CTX, and then we get the name, labels, data, background, and border that I plugged in here. So there is the labels, name, data, background, border, and by using this syntax. So I'm grabbing this element here. So using jQuery, I put in the CTX from here, and then dot attribute. So attr, and then I'm saying what attribute I'm grabbing. And that's going to be whatever string I put in there. And that's going to be always a string. You can't put in anything in here except for string. So again, it needs to be serialized. Otherwise, if you put in a Python data type in here, it's going to try to change it into string somehow. And exactly the right way because then you can't really parse it. It needs to follow the JSON standard. So that's why I serialized it in my views using JSON dumps. And in here, I grab it. So I have a string here, string here, string here, string here, string. So we have a couple of strings here, and then I'm parsing them into arrays. Okay, so each of these, and then I print them. So console.log is printing to console in my browser because I want to see what's going on in there. So since we are on this point, let's have a look how it looks. I'm gonna go to my Chrome. I usually show you stuff in Safari, but this time I want to show it in Chrome. So I'm going to just close this. And to get to inspection, you just right click on anywhere on the page and just click inspect, or use Option Command I if you're using Mac. So that's a shortcut. And here are all the console log information. So if you go to console, you can go to elements, you go to console, sources, network, and so on. So there's a lot of information you can get about this particular website and the connection between the server and you as a client. So but for now, I want to go to console, and this is very useful thing when you're using JavaScript. If you want to debug your code, you want to console log and then just see what happens. So as you can see, I'm login name, then labels, then data, background, and border, and this is the name, and these are the four other variables that I mentioned. So this is the array of all the countries. Here is an array of all the values, and as you can see, as I mentioned before, some of these floats are like very long, and but though the tagging helped formatting here. But anyway, then we have the strings of all of the colors in this one and this one, with the 1 in here, which means it's not going to be transparent. Yeah, if you look at the background colors, this is like 0.2. That's why if I scroll down to data visuals, you can see the difference. This is kind of transparent, and the border here is solid. So if I close the backgrounds, you can see this is the last one, the last kind of console log before another round of that console log is being called a couple of times, depending how many elements of class my chart we have, and we have obviously as many as pollutants. Okay, so for each pollutant we have this set of information here. So anyway, that's very important to know when you use JavaScript. Console log is very useful, and also if you go to inspect console and you want to try something. So for example, you want to be like. So for example, you want to see how to split and you can't remember exactly what was the syntax. So you just say like ABC, then DEF, and I don't know, whatever. And you want to see, okay, so what do I have to do? So let's put that as A. Let A be this, okay, and A is that string. And now I want to do like, okay, A dot split and by comma, okay, and let's see what happens. Oh yeah, so it did work. It actually gave me an array of A, B, C, D, E, F, and K, H, J, J, J. So you can try out some code here if you're not sure about your JavaScript. You can just test it here very quick. But back to our chart. So then I just copied that thing from here. So this is it. This is where we kind of just go and say, hey, give me that my chart. Which will be just like an instance of chart, and I plugged in here, so that wasn't changed. I changed the labels to the array that I got here, and then I changed the name that I got from the element that we grabbed, and then we have data from here again from the element, background and border, the same story, and then it happens over and over again until we have all the visuals done. And let's go to the visuals. They're nicely displayed. If they're, I can see on my screen they're slightly too big. Well, they're just exactly about right. So maybe I can leave it so we can, as you can see, you can turn off the views. We might have some fun with it. Instead of just having multiple views, we might have just one with different pollutants, and we can turn off and on different pollutants. But for now, I just wanted to show you something relatively simple. So you can see that it's all working, and you can see also that different charts have different data. So like BAP, whatever that pollutant is, doesn't have that many countries. So again, that would be probably kind of good to assign a color, a specific color to a specific country. But that's going to come in the future. For now, you have a handy crash course. That was terrible. I feel so guilty for making this video, but I kind of don't want to leave you for 2 weeks with nothing. I think at this point you'll have a lot of fun. You can play with the aggregations. So in here you have a couple of different aggregations, and again, like, I encourage you to in the meanwhile just go to Django. So I'm just gonna open a new tab, and just Django and queries, for example, and just kind of see what kind of information how can you aggregate information, what kind of information you can put together, and that would be pretty cool for you to check. If you have any questions as well, you have 2 weeks of, to comment, and I still kind of don't know exactly where am I going. So things are so crazy right now. You know the saying, when it rains, it pours. So this is what's happening right now. I suppose, if you have any ideas for how to kind of continue with this, shoot me a comment, shoot me a message, find me on Facebook. Definitely, I'm going to take it into consideration. I'm very much open to it. So anyway, I hope that it wasn't too kind of hard on you, this way of explaining what I did. I know it's pretty hard to kind of just go through code when it's written. It's kind of easier when you see someone typing, but at the same time, you have all the code here. I'm gonna leave it in the description as well, so I can copy some bits that you don't really, or you know what, I'm not gonna do it because it's better to rewrite stuff. And there's a lot of stuff you can copy anyway. You can copy this template here, and you just need to replace some bits. So it's a good practice to actually do it yourself. So you can always scroll around my videos and check what's where. I'm gonna timeline it as well, so it should be easy to find. Anyway, listen guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Enjoy this, play around with your data, see what kind of cool stuff you can make here. How can you approach coloring those countries? Maybe you have an idea, and just have fun, and I'll see you in the next video, where I'm gonna move from generating those views using context to Ajax. So just asynchronous requesting data, which also helps with like even uploading data. So instead of refreshing the view, we can upload data using Ajax, and we can filter data as well using Ajax, so we don't have to refresh the page over and over again. Anyway, that was long enough, so thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.